It's good to be back. It is good to be back. As most of you know, I was gone the first half of this week, and it was good to be gone, to be honest with you. I got to go down to West Virginia. I know a lot of you guys have ties there. Went with my dad for several days and got to, as I shared with a few people already, got to hear stories I have not heard yet. Got to go to places I had not seen yet. My Uncle Ron, I got to see my uncle and his family and my two aunts that are still with us, and see their families. And my Uncle Ron has one of those ATV side-by-side mountain cars in the mountains, and we went places that a billy goat should not go, is how my father phrased it, and he was right. You just one of those things where you just kind of hold on to the sound bar, the safety bar, and you pray and you enjoy the ride. But it was a very good trip. Really enjoyed my time with my father and our family, and but we're back, and we are getting into a new study series. So if you would, let's go ahead and get our Bibles out, and we're going to go ahead and get in there. We're going to go to John chapter 1 as we finish up this letters of John study that we have been in, and talking about 100% truth, talking about 100% love, talking about knowing this life, enjoying this life, sharing this life. I think where we're headed now is a really good follow-up to that, to go a little bit deeper as we talk about having a friendship with Jesus. We talk oftentimes in church how to have a relationship with Jesus, but we're not always the best at going deeper into having a friendship with Jesus. And while this is a new study series, in some ways it is an old study series. When we first started the TSF, we were over at the Marion Racquetball Club upstairs. It was reopened, to the public 16 and a half years ago now. My very first study series was what we're digging into now, talking about the friendship between Jesus and Peter. And a lot of that was based off of a Bible study in a book called A Fragile Stone. If anybody wants to pick this up, don't do it this week, because you'll know half of what I'm talking about on Sunday morning. So wait a month, 2 months, we'll get to it. But A Fragile Stone by Michael Card. Some of you guys might know him as a singer, musician, but he's written incredible Bible studies as well, including this one. Just a simple study of looking at Peter and Jesus' friendship. And if we can understand their friendship, why Jesus was here on this earth in his earthly ministry, then we can understand our friendship with Jesus better. And so it's not a lot of A, B, C points. It's not 1, 2, 3 points. It's looking at them as an example and finding what things the Holy Spirit puts on our heart to say, there, that's someplace I can go. That's someplace I can go deeper in my relationship. Because when we don't have a friendship with Jesus, that's when we start to have some struggles. And a lot of people do hold him off at arm's length. Sometimes we don't even know how to let him get closer. But when we find ourselves at places where we're saying, well, he talks to them, but I've never heard him talk to me. Or if we say, well, it seems like everything goes easy for them. They must be a good Christian. My life is a hot mess. So obviously there's some kind of problem there. We're going to talk about that Jesus is in the hot mess, and Jesus is in our relationships, and how to be able to find that as we go through in this relationship. But here in the beginning is the beginning. As we start out in John chapter 1, looking at how Peter and Jesus first met before the earthly ministry got going. So let me read a little bit here. There's 2 different sections I want to cover, but I think that it's just like everything else, a few short sentences, but so much to unpack. In verse 40 of chapter 1, it says, one of the 2 who heard John speak and followed Jesus was Andrew, Simon Peter's brother. He first found his own brother Simon and said to him, we have found the Messiah, which means Christ. He brought him to Jesus, and Jesus looked at him and said, you are Simon, the son of John. You shall be called Cephas, which means Peter. So we'll stop there for a couple of seconds and kind of unpack a few of these things. And the first one I want to talk to you about isn't really easily seen because of our context. But did you happen to notice that he introduces Andrew, a fisherman, a disciple of John the Baptist. We see just a couple paragraphs before that he has been following John the Baptist. John the Baptist announces Jesus, says this is the Messiah. Andrew's now not changing teens, but he's moving up a little bit, starting to follow Jesus, and he goes and gets his brother. Well, the thing is when he introduces Andrew, he doesn't say the one that was John the Baptist. He says Simon Peter's brother. And the thing that's odd about that is Simon Peter has not been introduced yet. Did you catch that? He's identified with a character that we haven't even come across yet. It's like if you were alive in the late 70s, which I was, and you like Star Wars, which I do, And they introduced, let's say you read in the book version of A New Hope, the first Star Wars film they made, and it introduces Luke Skywalker as Anakin Skywalker's son. Well, who the heck is Anakin Skywalker? We hadn't met him yet. We're not going to meet him for a little while. You know, when you Darth Vader in as his father, how's he identified? As Luke's father, the hero's father. It's always connected. Well, this isn't fiction. This is history. And the thing that we have to remember is that, not like us, those who are reading this gospel for the first time know Simon Peter even better than they know Andrew, because of the character that he is, because of the person he is, because of the leader that he is. So just to take a small step into this, we'll just make sure that we understand who Peter is as we go into this as well. They were both apostles. They both gave their lives to the ministry. They both gave up their lives because of the ministry. Peter followed just like Andrew did, but there was something about him that took him from not just the 12, but to the 3. That a lot of times when Jesus took and called something that was a little bit more special, going forward for some prayer, going forward for an experience, he would bring James, John, and Peter. And then when we saw it was the one, he brought Peter. When we see a lot of the stories and a lot of the things that are going on within this, we find that there were several miracles tied to Peter. Whether it be walking on the water, taking in miraculous catches of fish, whatever the case may be, there were several that were tied to him and tied around his family. We find that he was a leader just in his normal life before Jesus showed up. He basically was the front man of Peter and Andrews and James and John, small business with the fisherman business. It seemed like they did pretty well with themselves because Peter had a house that was larger than most people would have during that time. He had a 2-story house close to the synagogue, where he took and supplied housing for himself, for his wife. I don't know at this point if we know he has kids yet or not, but he did have kids in his lifetime. He houses mother-in-law. He houses, did you catch that, did you? No, I'm just kidding. His brother, oftentimes Jesus. This was a guy that kind of had a decent life going, a manual life, working hard for a living. He wasn't educated. As we talked many times before, a young boy that was a Jewish boy would have to be educated within the scriptures, and those who excelled became Pharisees and Sadducees, religious leaders. Those who did not became tent makers and tax collectors and fishermen. So we know that he was educated in the scripture but did not do well within it. We know that he was not born in this area. We don't know why he came to Capernaum, but we know they had a strong Greek accent, a harsh accent that would be hard to understand within Judea. And God called him to be a speaker in Judea, a missionary within Judea. This is somebody who made a lot of mistakes as he followed Jesus. He got some of the harshest reprimands from Jesus as he was navigated along the road, but he was the first to call Jesus the Son of God. He was the first to acknowledge his sinfulness before Jesus. He was all in and a hot mess all at the same time. After Jesus' time on this earth, he continued to be a leader. Actually, if you look at all the list of the apostles, every time Peter's listed first. And he was the first to take and go out and take and preach on Pentecost. He was the one that took the message out and took it into the Jewish world and gave his entire life for it. His wife went with him on many of his missionary trips. We have tons of information from him, not just from the Bible itself, but from outside historians of the time. In this book, there's 7 different sources listed as he goes through and acknowledge some different things within his life, including his wife's ministry, and that when Peter was killed because of the faith, he was crucified upside down. You guys remember that? Because he felt that he was not good enough to die the way that his Lord had died, so he has to be crucified upside down. His wife was martyred just before he was, and we have historical record of them both singing hymns as she was led to her death because her time had finally come and she got to go home to be with Jesus. This guy was rocking. This guy is just a whole different ballgame. It's like I could get up here and talk about him like Billy Graham. I mean, he was a leader amongst leaders, but that's not him here. That's not him here. They knew Andrew as Simon Peter's brother. When they were reading this, it was like, oh, let's see, Jesus, here's Andrew. I wonder if okay, it's Simon's brother. That's not who he was at this point. The next thing that really stands out, I guess, is as we get into verse 42, is that Jesus comes to him and Jesus looks at him. Again, I think this is another phrase that's kind of easy to take and look past and move past, but This particular phrasing here, when you go back to the original Greek, we lose it in the English, but the word is epipo. And if you are a note taker, I'm going to spell it. I just gave you enough time to grab your pen. E-M-B-L-E-P-O. Emblepo. E-M-B-L-E-P-O. It means a deep, piercing look that goes straight to the heart. It's not used often in the scripture. Another time that we find this also is tied to Peter after Peter denies Jesus 3 times in the temple courtyard. And Jesus and him lock eyes across the temple courtyard. It means a deep, intent look that sees the heart. In other words, in this very first moment, Jesus looks into Peter and sees who he truly is. Who he truly is. Well, we know in the next chapter, John 2:25, it says that Jesus knows a man's heart. He doesn't have to get to know a man. This is one of those cases where we see Jesus looks deep into him and then says, I see who you are, and I see who you're going to be. I see that they call you Simon. I see that they call you Peter, but you're going to be Cephas. You're going to be Peter. And for that, again, we really should be amazed as well. That Jesus looks at us, knows who we are, and who we're going to be. Simon was the most common name in this culture at this time. It's basically Bob or Steve or whatever you want it to be. Simon grew up like I did. Whenever the teacher said Tom, 3 of us said what? You know, I hated my name. My middle name is Langdon. I almost went with Langdon so many times in my life, but then I'd have to spell it, and there was a big mess or whatever, so I just stayed with Tom. But it was just the most common name within it. And so basically Jesus is looking into him because I see that you're common. I see how the world sees you. I see where you're at. I see how you think about yourself. You're doing pretty good business-wise. You've got a pretty good life for your family, but I see that you're common. But the reality is you're going to be Cephas. You're going to be Peter. You're going to be the rock. You're going to be the cornerstone. And that name, Cephas, was not a known name at that time. Cephas did not become a name in people's vocabulary for another 200, 300 years as people started naming them after Peter. It was completely out of the ballpark. You know, Greg, I see you, Greg, but now your name's a right? It's just complete that. But he's like, I see who you are, and I see who you're going to be. It's a very beautiful moment within this. And as we continue in the gospel, actually with Chris's help, I'll put Matthew 16 up, so you don't have to go there. Matthew 16, 17 through 18, where later down the road, Jesus answered him, Blessed are you, Simon Bar-Jonah, for flesh and blood has not revealed this to you, but my Father who is in heaven. And I tell you, you are Peter. We see that as he continues down the road, that he becomes Peter. And on this rock I will build my church, and the gates of hell shall not prevail against it. So we see that Peter has a process that he goes through. We go through a process. And I can tell you before Matthew 16, there was a lot of mistakes that Peter made. And I tell you after Matthew 16, there was a lot of mistakes that Peter made. But it's heart, it's who we're becoming, it's who we are growing, that Jesus sees the true us, sees what we have made of ourselves, what we believe about ourselves, what others have told us about ourselves, and says, but I see who you truly are. And we're going to get there together. From there, let's jump over to Luke chapter 5. And you can lose your place there in John 1. I'm not going to come back to it. Luke, you're going back towards the beginning of the Bible there. But Luke chapter 5 is several months after this first occasion. I think a lot of us think that like Jesus just showed up, follow me, they leave their jobs, they're on the field. But there was some time here between when he first meets Simon and this encounter that we have here. I don't know how many months. I know that there's at least 10 miracles recorded in the book of Mark that happened between these two times. It was centered around Peter and around those that were in this community. And it's interesting when we go to Mark, because Mark is basically the gospel of Peter. If you're not aware, Mark was, we see him with Paul, we see him with Barnabas, we see kind of his early days, but then as he continued mission work, he became Peter's assistant. And that there were those that wanted a recorded message of what Peter was teaching. And so that's where the Gospel of Mark comes from. It's actually the first Gospel written, and some of the others were modeled towards it as far as some of its structure. But some of those miracles, Peter really stood out to him. He recorded those. And then we find this occasion. Chapter 5, verse 1. While the crowd was pressing in on Jesus to hear the word of God, he was standing by the lake of Gennesaret. And he saw 2 boats by the lake. But the fishermen had gone out of them and were washing their nets. Getting into one of the boats, which was Simon's, he asked him to put out a little from the land. And he sat down and taught the people from the boat. I love this. I just love this. If you're a Messiah, which I'm not, and you're getting ready to transition for fishermen into the ministry, what a beautiful physical transition to go this route. Let me get into your boat. Let me meet you where you are. Let me use language that you understand, put out, and let me teach. And so Peter once again took and was teaching, or saw him teaching. And then in verse 4, it says, when he had finished speaking, he said to Simon, put out into the deep and let down your nets for a catch. And Simon answered, Master, we toiled all night and we took nothing, but at your word I will let down the nets. And when they had done this, they enclosed a large number of fish, and their nets were breaking. They signaled to their partners in the other boat to come and help them, and they came and filled both the boats so that they began to sink. But when Simon Peter saw it, he fell down at Jesus' knees, saying, Depart from me. Depart from me, I am a sinful man, O Lord. For he and all who were with him were astonished at the catch of fish. And so also were James and John, sons of Zebedee, who were the partners with Simon. Picture through this a little bit, and again, I know we've talked about it past, maybe some of you guys know some of this imagery, maybe you do not. But at that time, to be a fisherman, you're going to go out, you're going to try to catch fish, right? That's your livelihood. You come back in, you clean the nets, which is a couple-hour process, but you got to keep the nets good because you can't replace them, and then you go out some other time. So what we find within this story, we're at the end of a catch, and we didn't catch a thing. It was a disastrous day business-wise. Nothing was biting. It just was not a good situation in any way, shape, or form. So to have a carpenter say to you, let's go back out. Go do it again. This time, I guarantee you're going to catch fish. Peter is not happy about this moment. This is not something he wants to do. He makes it very clear, we've tried, but you've been around for a few months. I know there's something special about you. We'll give it a shot. You probably have never been in this moment with Jesus, but I have a billion times over. I don't want to call that person. I don't want to go to that Bible study. I don't want to forgive that person or this person. I don't want to give up my finances. I don't want to do this. I don't want to do that. But since you're Jesus, I guess I'll do it. That's good. Keep that up. Keep that up, because what he does is he continues to bless it. I don't know about you, but when I don't feel like going to a Bible study with friends, and I'm telling you, as your pastor, there's times I just don't feel like leaving the house. Just want to watch Netflix, and I walk out of there going, what in the world was I thinking? What was I thinking? You got something in the word, you got to hang out with a friend, you got to have a deep talk with somebody. Every single time he shows up, just keep doing it, because that's exactly what he did with Peter here. Peter says, okay, we'll give it a shot. And they go out, and they fill the nets to the point that they have to call John and James in, because the nets are breaking, and they fill the boats, and they try to get it in to be able to come into this moment of just probably the best success that they have ever had. Now, like I said, I just got back from West Virginia, and I know what fish stories sound like, right? You know what I mean? I know how that goes. This is a story they're going to be talking about for years. Do you remember that one day? And there's a chance, again, maybe you've never done this, I have, that they take the credit for it. There's a chance that they say, man, let's look at how good we did. We didn't give up. But Peter does not do that. There's something about this moment that unveils the beauty of who Jesus truly is, his deity, not just the guy that's standing there that's teaching out of the boat a few moments, but he just controlled this moment. He controlled fish that were not there to come in and just dive into our nets going, here, take me. I mean, there's no way that this is anything but the Messiah who just rescued us, just saved us, just gave us our most successful day ever. And instead of Jesus looking into Peter's eyes and saying who he truly is, in the light of Jesus, Peter looks at who he is and says, I'm not worth this. I'm not worthy of this. You have got to leave. There is no way I will ever measure up. I don't deserve this. And I think one of the challenges we have in Christianity in the church today is too few of us have had that moment. Too few of us have had that moment. And so in this moment, he says, leave me. I am blown away. I'm astonished. I think he becomes like one of the fish trying to get out of the net. In the second part of verse 10, Jesus says to Simon, do not be afraid. From now on, you'll be catching men. And when they had brought their boats to land, they left everything and followed him. They left the boats. They left their family. They left the best catch they ever had that probably would have set them up for at least a year to follow Jesus when he says, do not be afraid. There's a section in here where Mr. Card is talking a little bit about fear. He says, in response to the miraculous catch, Peter asks for what he really does not want. He asks for Jesus to leave. He's become the frightened fish, thrashing in the net, wanting only to get away, or at least for Jesus to get away from him. Peter's come face to face with the frightening possibility of complete success. Failure, like their earlier empty nest, seems so much safer and predictable. We will see later that often in the presence of Peter, when Jesus reveals his true nature in a new way, the first words from his lips are, don't be afraid. When he calms the storm, when he walks on the water, when he's transfigured into blazing light, and when he is raised from the dead. Each time Jesus comforts and calms Peter with these words. In each instance, when the veil is momentarily lifted and Peter has a terrifying realization that he, a veteran sinner, is in the presence of the undiminished deity, it totally undoes him as indeed it should. Have you ever come close enough to be terrified by the glory of Jesus? When I was in high school is when I first felt called into ministry. Took me, about 14 years to get there. Didn't quite go the way I thought it would, so I kind of went my own path for a while in the business world. But I do remember the moment. I remember the week. I remember being at camp. And I remember that it was tied to a picture. Now, some of you guys have seen the picture because it hangs in my office. Make sure I get that story because this old boy isn't as quite as healthy as it used to be. It hung at the church camp that I was at for about 30 years. And when they closed the camp, they had this big party type thing with everybody coming back for reunions and stuff. And not that I'm antisocial, but that just wasn't the way I wanted to say goodbye to Judson Hills. I wanted to just go up and be by myself. So I went up about a week before, and most everything had been moved out. Since they were selling it, there was another camp up north called Koinonia that's still there that a buddy of mine runs. So most of the furniture's gone, tables gone, chairs gone, those type of things. And I'm walking through the lodge, and I see this picture still hanging there, the exact condition that you see now. And I called the guy that was the minister of outdoor ministries, and I said, what is that doing up there? And he says, well, whatever's left is going in the dumpster. And I said, do you know how many people would kill for this picture because of the experience I had with it that I'm about to talk about? He said, well, if you want it, take it. I said, don't tell any of those other people I got it then. I'm kidding. There's a lot of people who want this picture. Because like me, many of us, this is the first time we ever looked at a picture of Jesus and we could identify. There was something about the eyes. There was something about the reality. There was something about the dirtiness and the hard work that went into this Jesus. And I grew up in an age where we never even considered that. I mean, we're still trying to get to a point that we have a Jesus that's dark-skinned. But back then, it was always white, big light, stained glass. He's ominous. You'll never be like him. It was rock star Jesus. But there was something about this that I remember looking into the eyes of it and feeling like there was an experience there. If we're going to talk about friendship with Jesus, then there's things that we have to become comfortable with that many are not comfortable with. We have to be comfortable with the fact that we are sinners. And we in no way, shape, or form deserve what Jesus gives. We have to be comfortable with the fact that He is God and I am not. And stop trying to put some kind of image out there of what I want people to think about me and be real with Jesus. There's no good relationship you have. There's nobody that you call a sister. There's nobody call a brother that they don't know you and you know them. That you've been through highs and lows with them and they have tested you and you have tested them and you guys have got each other's backs for the rest of your life. You might not see each other for 10 years because they move away and you see each other and it's just like yesterday. That happens when we're honest and we're vulnerable. And people who live by presenting an image, first off, never get close with anybody. And secondly, trust me on this, I've been around long enough to say this with confidence. People see past the image, and all you have left in your life are either other people that give you a fake image, because everybody else will walk away because they want to know the real you and you're not willing. Jesus knows who you are. When's the last time you had an honest talk with Him about the sin in your life? Because the second thing you got to get comfortable with is that He knows you fully, better than you know yourself. There is nothing that you're hiding from God that He doesn't know about. It's not hidden. When's the last time you just sat down and talked to Him and said, I really keep screwing up in this one area? And there's parts of me that regret it deeply, and there's parts of me that just keep on holding on. And have a real conversation with Him about it. When's the last time you were angry at Him and told Him? It's okay. David did it through all the Psalms. My daughter's mad at me. I find out about it real quick. And the love never diminishes. The love never diminishes. If we're going to talk about having a real relationship with Jesus, it's got to get past the look. It's got to get past what we're comfortable with. And the third thing we got to get comfortable with this is this. When you look at yourself, you're going to see the failure. When He looks at you, He sees who you truly are. There was nothing in any of this when Jesus ever looked at Peter and said, yep, it's about time you saw it in yourself. You're not worth it. Never said that. He says, I see where you're at. But let's talk about where you're going, what you're created for, what you're made for, what we're going to do together. Let's do this step by step through all the highs and all the lows. And some of us are not afraid of Jesus knowing about the sin. We're afraid of what He's going to say about us because we don't think we can ever truly be that person. Some of us, like Peter, are much more down on us than Jesus ever even considered. Where He is deity and I'm not. We're going to find a lot of ups and downs with Peter and Jesus. And the road never ended until he got home. But if you want a friendship with Jesus, it's time to get really real with Him and let Him have His way. Here's what I want to do. Michael, since you're up, I'm going to bring you up if you give me some pad. Come on. Let's talk about Michael as an example. Come on. I'm kidding. No, I need you for just a second. And let's take the lights out. Let's have some time with Jesus. Okay? I was going to kind of walk you through it, and I'll tell you what, you guys have been horrible at this, but I'm going to challenge you one more time. If you really want to lean into this as a start, there's plenty of chairs up here in the front. You can pull Lynn's feet off. She's fine. You can sit up here. You can stay in the back of the room. Do something that makes this moment just you and him. Okay? If you want to use this picture, use this picture. If you want to close your eyes and imagine him there, imagine him there. But let's walk through this a little bit, and let's see where we start with this. Mike, I'll call you guys up in a little bit, but not quite yet. Jen, if you get the lights. Will you guys pray with me? Oh, dear Jesus, dear Heavenly Father, take us into this time with you. Take us into a time of an honest, open, realistic, spiritual connection with you in this moment. Whatever we've been going through, whatever mountains, whatever valleys, whatever successes, whatever failures, and move away from the comfortability, from the walls that we have put up, from the images that we have created, from the skepticism and the doubts, and meet you here. We take just a few moments and just move everything else out of your prayer. But sometimes our prayers become all the things that we think we deserve, or that He should be doing for us. Let's move everything out of our prayers in this moment. In this moment. And think about everything He is. The beauty, the majesty, the love, the grace, the truth. As if you were looking very deeply into His eyes and He was looking intently into your heart. And worship Him there. We love you, Jesus. Love you, Jesus. Love you, Jesus. You're so good. So overwhelming. If you you've never accepted Jesus as leader and forgiver in your life, this is a great moment to respond to him, to receive that grace, to receive that gift. There's no magic words, it's just a matter of telling him you're in. Tune just a moment with me. I'm focusing on Jesus, to focusing on yourself the way that you see you. If we're going to be honest about this, let's be honest about it. Have you been in a place where you're the prodigal son, but you have not yet returned? You're still out trying to live this life your own way, do your own thing. Maybe you're still partying, and maybe the party has stopped. Are there struggles that you struggle with just emotional illness, mental illness, physical illness, that you try to hide because you don't want people to either be fake with you or give sympathy to you, things that you've been carrying all by yourself? Things that your closest friends don't know about, that you're either struggling with, or maybe you've just even given up on struggling with and just are leaning full in. Insecurities because of what people have said about you and to you, from your formative years all the way up to yesterday. What image are you bearing? Are you bearing a fake facade? Or are you bearing the image of God? He already knows about it. Nobody around you might know about it, but he knows about it. And he loves you. Nothing gets looked at if it's in the dark. Father, hear us as we bring the worst into your light. Humble yourself before the Lord, and he will lift you up. Father, we thank you for your grace. We thank you for your love. We thank you for your forgiveness, for your purpose and your power and your peace that you give to us. That in our most vulnerable moments, when our head is down and the largest fear that we might have is looking up into your eyes again. That you bend down, put your hand under our chin, and gently lift our face to yours. Do not be afraid. Do not be afraid. Do not be afraid. As we just look into your eyes, do not be afraid. Do not be afraid. I know who you are. I know what the rest of the world sees. I know others will see a common pebble or a common chunk of coal. But I know that you are my rock, that you are a cornerstone, that you are my child. You are one that I have designed and one that I have purposed, one that I never gave up on, and one that I embrace now. I know the life that I have designed for you and where we go from here, and I know that you will never be perfect and that you will make mistakes, but how I love you. I know we have a lot of lessons still to learn, and we'll get there. How I love you. I know your struggles. I know your challenges. I know sometimes you just want to rage out. I fully get it, and I love you. Do not be afraid. Do not be afraid. You might be praying over one of your kids. You might be praying over your marriage. You might be praying over a parent, someone that's with you right now in the house, or somebody that's sitting next to you here at the church. Don't be afraid to just take their hand. Pray with them, cry with them, laugh with them. His victory is victory over all. His victory is yours. He never called you into a superficial Sunday morning, at an arm's distance relationship of surviving this earth, and someday things will be better when you get to see him face to face. He's designed us for a time like this. A relationship with him now. A life to know, a life to enjoy, and a life to share. We love you, Jesus. To you, O Lord, I lift up my soul. O my God, in you I trust. Let me not be put to shame. Let my enemies do not let my enemies exalt over me. Indeed, none who wait for you shall be put to shame. They shall be ashamed who are wantonly treacherous. Make me to know your ways, O Lord. Teach me your paths. Lead me in your truth and teach me, because you are the God of my salvation. For you I wait all the day long. Remember your mercy. O Lord, remember your mercy and your steadfast love, for they have been from of old. Remember not the sins of my youth or my transgressions. According to your steadfast love, remember me, for the sake of your goodness, O Lord. Good and upright is the Lord. Therefore he instructs sinners in the way. He leads the humble in what is right and teaches the humble his way. All the paths of the Lord are steadfast in faithfulness, for those who keep his covenant and his testimonies. For your name's sake, O Lord, pardon my guilt, for it is great. Who is the man who fears the Lord? Him will he instruct in the way that he should choose. His soul shall abide in well-being, and his offspring shall inherit the land. The friendship of the Lord is for those who fear him, and makes known to them his covenant. My eyes are ever towards the Lord, and he will pluck my feet out of the net. Turn to me and be gracious to me, for I am lonely and afflicted. The troubles of my heart are enlarged. Bring me out of my distress. Consider my affliction and my trouble, and forgive all my sins. Consider how many are my foes, and with what violent hatred they hate me. Oh, guard my soul. Deliver me. Let me not be put to shame, because I take my refuge in you. May integrity and uprightness preserve me, for I wait for you. Redeem Israel, O God, out of all of their troubles. Dear Heavenly Father, we thank you for this moment of opportunity to just meet you. We thank you for being a God that is over all of creation, that is over all righteousness, that is over all that we could possibly even imagine, and so much more. But that you'll meet us in our living room, our kitchen, our bedroom, on our phone at work, in this house, face to face, and call us forward into a friendship with Jesus Christ. We love you, and we pray these things in the name of Jesus, according to his will. So shall it be. Amen.